So yes, this evening we're going to be exploring Amitabha, the Buddha of love and light. But I'm going to start by just giving you a little outline of how I thought I'd approach the evening. And I thought we'd just take a moment. We're actually midway through our exploration of the Mandala of the 5 Buddhas. And I thought we'd take a moment to look at where we've been and why, and then talk about where we're going this evening. So I think it's always helpful. We were talking about this when we had a Sangha Night team meeting recently, a planning meeting. It's always helpful to join up what we're learning now with what we've learned before and remember why we're learning it. And yeah, the Dharma has many teachings, many facets, many angles, many images, but they all part of a unified whole, and it all roots back to the historical Buddha Shakyamuni. And as I say, this evening, we're specifically going to be exploring one aspect of the wisdom of Shakyamuni as it's symbolized in this red Buddha Amitabha of infinite light. He's the red Buddha of the Western realm. So we'll be exploring him a bit. We'll have a led meditation, and then we'll have discussion groups to talk about anything that's come out of the talk or the meditation. So yeah, so where have we been so far in this session and why? And I was thinking that the sort of fundamental answer to the question why in Buddhism could be said to be the 4 Noble Truths, which we learn about in the introductory course, and they're one of the first things that the Buddha taught. There's suffering, there's a cause of suffering, there's an end to suffering, and there's a path that leads to the end of suffering. And that path that leads to the end of suffering is the Noble Eightfold Path. And that's the path that we've been travelling this year. So just a quick reminder on that. Here we are, there's the Noble Truths. And yeah, so the Noble Eightfold Path. Right back at the beginning of the year, we were exploring vision, the first step, that glimpse that we've all had in some way, just like the Buddha did when he saw the 4th sight of freedom from suffering. And then through the middle of the year, we were exploring the various actions of body, speech and mind we take in the light of that vision to transform us in various ways, to transform our emotion, our speech, our action, our livelihood and our effort. And then we go on. We went on in the autumn to explore mindfulness or awareness through the Life with Full Attention course. And this session we're looking at now is a way of exploring the culmination of the Eightfold Path, which is described as perfect samadhi or awareness. And yeah, we were thinking how to best explore this final stage of the Eightfold Path when actually it is pretty much impossible to pinpoint conceptually what samadhi is. It's pointing to the culmination of the path. And Sangharakshita describes samadhi as the state of being fully established in the enlightened mode of being. Being fully established in the enlightened mode of being. And of course, that enlightened mode of being is beyond concepts. Concepts can only bring us a little way towards non-conceptual understanding. But images can take us further than that. Imagination can take us further than reason on its own. And for that reason, we decided in this part of the exploration of the Eightfold Path to turn to images that illumine this experience of being established in the enlightenment state. And there's a metaphor of light that runs all the way through the Buddhist tradition. Well, enlightenment obviously has light right in the middle of it. And light is a metaphor for awareness. And it's a really powerful image for the awakening, for the culmination of the path. And we can think of enlightenment as being like a pure white light. And that white light with the Buddha becomes refracted. To show you another image. Yeah, it's as if the Buddha is a prism that refracts this pure white light of enlightenment. And the Buddha enables that light, the light of the Dharma, to shine in the world in a multifaceted way. And by being receptive to this light of the Buddha, we can kindle our own light. In the threefold puja, we say, from his greater lamp, a lesser lamp we light within us, the lamp of Bodhi, shining within our hearts. So we can see that, yeah, we can catch that light, if you like, from the Buddha. Or we could also say that we need to be able to recognize the light that actually is already within us, that wants to shine out through the cracks in us when we let it. So one way or another, it's about how we become aware of and we allow this light of enlightenment, the light of the Dharma, to shine. And often that light has a particular tinge or hue, depending on the qualities that we're most drawn to in enlightenment. Different things draw different ones of us. And that light refracted through the prism makes it easier to see the different qualities. The one pure white light can be quite hard to differentiate, whereas when it's refracted into these colours, it starts to bring out these qualities of enlightenment that include wisdom and generosity, love, energy, and awareness. And it's an interesting thing because each of these qualities that I've just mentioned can also be refracted in different ways. So there are different ways that wisdom is refracted, different ways that generosity is expressed, different manifestations of loving kindness. We've got the Brahma Viharas, the sublime abodes, the different practices of loving kindness, as if reflected again in different lights through that prism. There are different kinds of energy that we bring to practice, and there are different aspects of awareness. So it's as if we can have mandalas within mandalas, almost like a fractal spiraling out of these qualities through space and time. And what we're actually looking at this evening is the different aspects of the Buddha's wisdom. So the first of those qualities, there are different aspects of the Buddha's wisdom that correlate with these different colours of refracted light in this archetypal mandala of the 5 Buddhas. And I expect most of you know, these figures weren't historical figures. They're imaginative evocations of the qualities of the enlightened mind. And that isn't to say they're not real, but it's another story to talk about that. They're certainly real, but perhaps not in the way that we might imagine. They're aspects of the enlightened mind. They're that whole rainbow light of enlightenment. So I thought we'd have a look at a more familiar image alongside a mandala image. So here we have our very familiar image from the shrine room in the Buddhist Centre. And I expect you all know or have noticed we've actually got those colours of the 5 Buddha mandala reflected around the aura of the Buddha. And they translate into this. We've got an image of the mandala on the right-hand side of the screen. I think if the photos are in the way, I think you can actually move them out of the way. And then you can see this mandala of the 5 Buddhas. And it's an interesting presentation because we always enter the mandala with the blue Buddha Akshobhya, which we did 3 weeks ago. And he's traditionally said to be in the Eastern realm. And obviously we're used to the Eastern realm being at 3 o'clock in a representation like this, but actually here it's at 6 o'clock. So I think it's just worth knowing that different orientations of the compass happen in different places, and we might be in a habitual way of seeing it. But actually this blue Buddha at 6 o'clock is the blue Buddha Akshobhya, who is a resident of the Eastern realm. And his name means unshakable. And the particular wisdom that we explored, Naravira explored, that he embodies is the mirror-like wisdom. So you could say that's the clarity of mind, to see reality reflected in anything and everything. The clarity of mind to see reality reflected in anything or everything. And like a mirror, it's a question of just seeing it. It doesn't stick, there's no grasping, it's just seeing the reality, just as a mirror reflects whatever appears in front of it. So the unshakable wisdom of Akshobhya is mirror-like. And when Naravira did his talk on Ratnasambhava, he mentioned William Blake. And I thought, oh, actually, there's a phrase of Blake's that we could also, or a verse of Blake's that we could also use in relation to Akshobhya. That famous verse, to see a world in a grain of sand, heaven in a wild flower, to hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. So that's the mirror-like wisdom of the blue Buddha Akshobhya. And then we moved clockwise around the mandala to the golden yellow Buddha Ratnasambhava. And he's traditionally in the southern realm. And his name means the jewel-born one. And the wisdom that he embodies is the wisdom of equality. So he sees everything as equal, in the sense of everything being ultimately a manifestation of shunyata. So this word shunyata can be quite a challenge to translate, often really well translated as the open dimension of being, things that are unfixed, ungraspable. His wisdom of equality is a manifestation of everything is equally unfixed, ungraspable, open. It's a sunny, golden, warm, accepting openness. And yeah, the phrase of Blake's that Naravira used to evoke Ratnasambhava is something which actually Vasantra once described as his own heart wish. It's a very beautiful phrase, and it is, eternity is in love with the productions of time. Eternity is in love with the productions of time. So there's that sense of just a complete acceptance and love of all that is in the human realm, in the realm of time. Ratnasambhava is very associated with the human realm, but from a much, much, much bigger perspective that is accepting of everything. And then we come round the mandala again to tonight, and we're going to come to Amitabha. So he's the deep red Buddha of the Western realm. And as I say, his name means infinite light, infinite light. And he transmutes mundane passion into a wisdom that is called the wisdom of discrimination. The wisdom of discrimination. So I'm going to say a bit about this, this wisdom of discrimination. And it's very much about seeing the uniqueness, the distinctive characteristics of every phenomenon. When Vasantra writes about this in Meeting the Buddhas, which, as you probably know, is definitely the handbook of this session, and there's a link to it in the chat if you'd like to get your own copy, which is always highly recommended. I've referred to Vasantra a lot for my talk this evening. And Vasantra says, just as a lover is highly aware of the distinctive qualities of their beloved, so very aware of particular mannerisms, phrases, particular way in which the beloved moves their head, so Amitabha sees and loves the minute differences in things. But there's a difference. There's a difference. Unlike that love, which can be a clinging love, Amitabha's discriminating wisdom is non-dual. It introduces no idea of self and other. So although Amitabha loves, there isn't any exclusive attachment. There's just this real loving appreciation of uniqueness as it arises and as it passes away, as it is distinct in each thing and in each person. And I was going to mention too that the practice of meditation is particularly associated with Amitabha in the Western realm. And I think you can see that through the cultivation of meditation, we become more and more able to have this discriminating awareness, to see things in clearer focus and appreciate these very minute particular differences between aspects of our experience, in terms of people, in terms of the world. And the way that Amitabha sits, he's sitting in he holds a mudra, a gesture, which is called the meditation mudra, the dhyana mudra. But before I go on to talk more about that, I did just want to say a little bit about this word discriminating and discrimination, because it occurred to me that discrimination is a word whose meaning has evolved over the last few decades. And something Sangharakshita, our teacher, was very keen on was that we're very mindful of language. The words that we use create the world that we inhabit. And it's always good to know what the origins of the words we use are and how they're being used in a particular context, because words aren't fixed entities. They describe things, and sometimes their meaning evolves. So I could give you another example of a word in a study group a couple of years ago. We were talking about tolerance, and somebody was very dubious about the word tolerance, because actually we talk about zero tolerance. as being a positive thing, and that means zero tolerance of, you know, drug use or whatever. But actually the word tolerance is a very, very positive word in the Buddhist tradition. It translates Kshanti, patience, one of the qualities of the Bodhisattva. And similarly, this discriminating wisdom, this capacity to discriminate, is very, very important. And I thought it would be quite interesting to go back to Sangharakshita's favourite dictionary, which was the first dictionary of the English language from the 18th century by Dr. Johnson, and hear what Dr. Johnson had to say about discrimination. And Dr. Johnson said, discrimination is the state of being distinguished from other persons or things, or the act of distinguishing one from another. And that's it. That's I mean, he gives examples, but that's basically his definition. And then I looked online at the most up-to-date Oxford Dictionary, and the first meaning that gave us was the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people, especially on the grounds of race, age, sex, or disability. And it's a secondary meaning to discrimination, the recognition and understanding of the difference between one thing and another. So that definition's in there, but what's happened is that word's been used in a particular context. And I think it's really good, particularly if you are sensitive to language, to really look into and understand these things, because sometimes we can end up having a bit of an ambivalent relationship with a word like discrimination without really getting to the bottom of what's going on. Yeah, and obviously in this context of Amitabha's love, this discrimination that is part of Amitabha's love is wholly positive. It's a wholly caring thing. The word comes from Latin, discriminare, which just means to distinguish between. That's it. It doesn't mean that he loves any one bit the less. He's just got that really clear differentiation between the different aspects. That discriminating wisdom is able to distinguish, but equally to love. And Amitabha's love is for everybody, no matter who, no matter where, no matter when. And he's very much associated with faith and with compassion. In fact, there's a whole strand of the Buddhist tradition that believes that actually we're beyond being able to do anything to help ourselves in this degenerate state that the world is in. And actually all we can do is chant the name of Amitabha and leave it all up to him. And if we do that with sufficient faith, we'll be reborn into his pure land. And it's quite interesting to reflect on this, because this isn't actually a passive practice. Actually, if somebody really wholeheartedly practices that with complete devotion, if the devotion is really complete to Amitabha, then actually all self-concern and all self-clinging would fall away in any case, in that desire to express devotion to Amitabha. And yeah, in the Pure Land schools of Buddhism, we're then reborn in Sukhavati. Sukhavati is the name of the Pure Land of Amitabha, where rebirth can happen. And with all these kind of teachings, there's different ways you can understand that. You may or may not, you may have an ambivalent relationship with rebirth, but as we know, that's only one way of looking at it. Actually, we're constantly reborn. We constantly recreate the conditions that recreate our mind, that recreate the world that we inhabit. Right there at the start of the Dhammapada. The experience is preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. So actually, if we transform our minds with loving devotion to Amitabha, the way that we experience this very world will transform. As Haku in Song of Meditation says, this very place, the lotus paradise. So, we transform our minds through meditation, not just on the cushion, but meditation in all senses. So yeah, I suppose another way we could see Amitabha is as the ultimate resting place of faith. Faith is very much the quality of that Western realm of Amitabha. And we can recognize that as we lean into that light, into that love, that light and love that's in our own hearts can be kindled more strongly. And this unconditional loving light of Amitabha's, as I've said, sees and responds to each according to need with this discriminating wisdom. And there's an interesting phrase of William Blake's, which I think it's we could use in relation to Amitabha. So we've had one for Akshobhya, one for Ratnasambhava. And William Blake said, if we really want to care for others, we must do it in minute particulars, not in generalities. And I really like that phrase, minute particulars. I think it's got that quality of careful, caring attention that really notices the fine detail of things and appreciates it, and really notices what it is somebody needs in the specifics, not in the great general grand policy gesture that doesn't actually chunk down into action. William Blake was quite a character. Some of you may have known. They know he was very outspoken at times, and he actually went so far as to say, yeah, if we want to care for others, we must do it in minute particulars. And he said those who talk about in generalities about the general good were scoundrels, hypocrites, and flatterers. So I just found that quite interesting, because I think he's actually being very practical, and I think it's very, very relevant to our exploration of Amitabha. Yeah, specific, caring, close attention. So in Vasantra's book, he explores this, and he talks about the way that if you approach Amitabha, the specific needs that you have will be met. And he does this in a mythic way. He describes what it might be like to eventually arrive at Amitabha's palace. I don't know if you haven't looked at Vasantra's book, I think it's something that really recommends it, among many things, is that each of the chapters on the 5 Buddhas is this imaginative evocation of traveling to the realm of that Buddha and arriving and having a sense of what that realm is like. And they're all got very, very different flavour, and they can be very lovely just to read as meditations. So he describes arriving at Amitabha's palace and receiving his gifts, and he says, after your long travels, you might be famished and a bit bedraggled. If you want food, in Amitabha's palace it will magically appear. New clothes, you have only to think of them to find yourself wearing them. So it's that sense of being specific about the need, and yeah, that need being met. So when I was reflecting on this, I really love doing these talks because they kind of cook on the back of my mind for 2 or 3 weeks before, and different thoughts come in and different connections. And what came to my mind thinking about this discriminating wisdom, this discriminating love that recognizes the need for specific responses to specific people and circumstances, I thought about the verses that precede our own transference of merit verse that we chant at the end of every class. So that verse comes from an 8th century Indian text called the Bodhicaryavatara. And that means a guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. So it's a real manual of how to practice. And a Bodhisattva is somebody who's vowed to attain enlightenment, not just for the sake of themselves, but for the sake of all beings. Who's really dedicated to the welfare of all beings, because they recognize that actually there is no difference between self and other. So it's a transcendent view of self and other that enables this really compassionate response. And Santideva in this text is very, very specific about how this aspiration manifests. Some of the beautiful verses have been made into a puja, and I think they evoke this kind of wise kindness of which Amitabha is the embodiment. So they're in chapter 3, if you want to have a look. And one way of putting them, one translation or rendering is, I would be a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who wander, a boat, a bridge, a causeway for those who long to cross over to the other shore. For all beings, I would be a lamp for those in need of light, and a bed for those in need of a bed. For all beings, I would be a wish-fulfilling gem. So a wish-fulfilling gem, yeah, provides whatever you need. A wish-fulfilling gem, an inexhaustible vase, a magic spell, a wishing tree, a cow of plenty. And then there's the verse that we're all familiar with, just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace. So I think you get that flavour of that. It's the altruistic aspect of that wisdom, wanting that desire to be whatever it is somebody needs. And actually, a friend was talking about this recently. She's got 3 close friends who've all got quite serious illnesses, and she's doing a lot of looking after, and she's doing a lot of cooking, because what they need is food. And she was saying to me, we're just going to have to get used to this. This is going to happen more. This is our practice. This is where it's at. This is what's needed. We need to adjust our expectations of what our lives and our practice look like to meet this. We need to build the slack into our lives to be able to respond in that way. And I think that's a very good example of a discriminating wisdom, actually. It's a wisdom that recognises what's happening on the ground and what is a skillful response. Yeah. So I wanted to actually now move on and look at the image of Amitabha before we meditate with him. And I've got a couple of images to share with you. And the first one is one by Arloka, who is an image from the shrine room at Padmaloka Retreat Centre in Norfolk. Just take case down to that. There we are. So yeah, this is Arloka's image of Amitabha. And Amitabha's time of day is sunset, and his direction is the west, and he's described as being like the setting sun. And he sits in meditation posture, as you can see. This particular image has another image of Amitabha in the heart. There's a whole other story about that I won't go into now, but this is actually an image of a vision of Amitabha that Sangharakshita had in India, which is the basis of one of the meditations that we do. And he's sitting slightly differently, holding up a red lotus flower. But normally Amitabha sits in what's called the meditation or dhyana mudra. So you can't quite see it well in that one, but this is a close-up from the image we have in our shrine room, which was painted by Kumada. And yeah, you can see he's sitting in this meditation mudra. So if you want, you could actually try this now for yourself. So it's one hand resting inside the other with both palms facing upwards. And you just allow the 2 tips of your thumbs to touch with the lightest pressure. And you can be aware of the space between your thumbs and your other fingers. It's a kind of oval. And that space, that oval, symbolises openness and receptivity. So yeah, Amitabha, here's the whole, pretty much the whole image. So Amitabha sits, as I say, in full meditation posture on a rich red lotus on a calm ocean, a great calm ocean. And his radiant form is like a setting sun. It casts a path of light across the waters. And I think you can just imagine, as I say, his name means the Buddha of infinite light. And it's like, actually, if you've got that infinite light, then it's going to enable that discriminating wisdom. It's like when the sun is really bright and you can really see all the details in something, all the light shining into water, and you can see all the little pebbles and all the little creatures really, really clear and distinctly. So that light shines out from Amitabha's heart. And it's a warm red light. And we can imagine that red light of Amitabha's love also flowing into our heart. So we're going to prepare for meditation now. I think I'll leave this image on the screen so that you can dwell on the image of Amitabha if you'd like to. And if you'd like to make yourself comfortable for meditation. So, as always, we'll begin by turning our attention inwards into an inner awareness of our bodies. Just as the sun withdraws its light from the world as it sinks below the western horizon at sunset, so we can gently and gradually turn our attention inwards. We can attend to the minute particulars of our inner experience, whatever they are. So we can notice any tensions in our bodies. We can notice any sensations, however subtle. Perhaps starting with being aware of your particular connection to the ground. Really noticing what the actual experience of that is. And remembering that we can let go all of our weight into the earth. And however much we let go, the earth can take it. And we are here as breathing bodies on the earth. And we all breathe in a different way. We all breathe differently at different times. So what's our actual experience of breathing at the moment? Our in-breathing and our out-breathing. Bringing the light of awareness to that experience. To the particulars of that experience. And allowing ourselves to let the loving light of Amitabha, that light that's flowing out of his heart like a pathway across the sea, it can flow into our experience, into all the aspects of our experience as we sit. We can be bathed in that sunset light. Remembering what it's like to feel that warmth of the sun on our body. soaking up that light and that love. Body like a mountain. Mind like the sky. Heart like the sea. Feeling the earthness of our bodies like a mountain. Allowing our minds to be sky-like, letting thoughts pass like clouds. Sensing the emotions in our heart like the waves on the sea. Becoming aware of our hands, you're sitting with them in that meditation mudra. One hand on top of the other, the thumbs lightly touching each other. They speak of relaxation, of opposites coming together. They're both active and receptive. Our thumbs just touching. They express balanced effort and ease. Just noticing the sensations in your hands. And allowing our awareness to come to the oval space enclosed between the palms and the arch of the thumbs. It's a space like the egg of emptiness in the center of the Vajra. The meditating Buddha Amitabha sits patiently incubating this egg of space, just waiting to see what will be hatched from this space of awareness. A whole new world can emerge out of that space of awareness. From that space, in Amitabha's hands, emerges his whole Pure Land. Rivers may flow from it, adorned with lotuses. Colourful birds might fly out, singing of the Dharma. Perhaps a deep red lotus bud will appear, tightly closed. And as the warm rays of love from our heart fall upon it, slowly, slowly, the lotus will unfold. And we shall see all beings cradled, safe at last, in the empty space between our hands. Om Amitabha Hari. Om Amitabha Hari. Om Amitabha Hari. Amitabha Hri. Om 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 Amitabha Hri. May I be a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who wander, a boat, a bridge, a causeway for those who long for the other shore. For all beings, may I be a lamp for those needing a lamp, a bed for those needing a bed. For all beings, may I be a wish-fulfilling gem, an inexhaustible vase, a magic spell, a wishing tree, a cow of plenty. Just as the earth and other elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace.